Hi, I am Wild Bill.
And I'm your weather girl. And today, I have a special date for you, Wild Bill.
Okay, I'm ready.
We're in Florida, and I thought maybe you like the races, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
NASCAR,
yeah, we're on the east coast of Florida right now, and I thought maybe we could go see the Daytona 500.
I'm game.
Okay. You know, it's a little early in the week, so how about if we just go see the qualifiers?
Sure.
You all right with that? Okay. And there's something even more special. I've got a great way to ride on it. Great way to see it.
Okay, let me know. Ready?
Okay, you're driving. Let's go north.
You don't always have to be standing to take a shower.
Bright sunny skies. It's so humid and hot.
In Defender, and we are riding right now into the rain. Let's take a look at that.
How about this as a date?
I love it.
Want to go to see the Daytona 500 qualifiers from the Goodyear Blimp?
Didn't you say when we were riding here that 0.0006% of the people get a chance to ride the blimp?
Aren't you lucky?
Yes, yes I am.
Well, as a meteorologist, total science nerd, to me this is probably my favorite way to fly. So I thought maybe what we could do is jump in the blimp, we can talk to the captain, we can see how it flies and learn a little bit about the atmospheric flight of the Goodyear airship, because it's actually not called the blimp anymore. Did you know that?
No, I would have guessed maybe Zeppelin, but Zeppelin was the name of the first guy that did it.
Right. So it used to be called a blimp because the entire chamber of the blimp itself, the part that you're used to seeing, was literally filled with helium. But today, it actually has an aluminum shell or a framework inside there, and they fill bags with helium inside that stays full of helium, and they have a little bit more control of how the airship flies. So it's actually not officially a blimp anymore, it's an airship. What you looking forward to the most?
Truly riding in the blimp.
As we're talking to the captains, it sounds like it's a little bit like riding on a boat, because you're on air currents like you would be on the waves, but only helicopter motions, and you still get to fly like an airplane. So It's a mixture of all three.
But it's surprising. You would think, oh, because it's got horizontal engines that can go vertical. So they have a lot more control of it than when it used to be, because it's on the outside frame. The motors are on the outside frame. Instead, they used to be right there in the gondola, the compartment where you're riding at. So that was kind of interesting because it's not as noisy, more controllable. So learning a lot. This is the latest.
Well, I'm excited to hear from the captains to see how they use weather in this flight. And I know maybe they'll let you fly. What do you think?
They don't want me to fly. You don't want me to fly.
Well, we did sure pick a beautiful day. Over 80 degrees today. 83 is our daytime high here. And we are in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. This is where we're taking off on this Goodyear Blimp. And then we'll just head about 15 minutes north of here to Daytona. And we'll be able to fly over the Daytona 500 qualifiers today. So we'll get a chance to see the whole track. And I think I'd like to have them take us out over the ocean. What do you say?
If it's possible.
What a nice date, huh?
Right on.
Let's get on it. Thanks, Edwin. Here it comes.
My name is Michael Doherty, and I'm the Chief Pilot and Manager of Operations for Goodyear's Airship Operations Team. Coming up on 18 years in about a week. I've been at Goodyear flying the airships, working for the airship team. So we're in the Daytona area for the Daytona 500 coming up this weekend on Sunday. We're here all week, so we have a couple of days here that we've got faster rides like this one. When you get on the airship, it's a lot like getting on a modern airplane. So we have every seat here is a window seat and an aisle seat, so it's really comfortable. It's a great passenger customer experience for us.
The other thing is, it's all driven by a pilot with a joystick.
Yeah.
No steering wheel, no back, no forth, anything. Right on the side to the left is running the motors.
There's a cockpit, so similar to any other flight deck, all of our instrumentation, all of the engine information is in front of us, all the controls to control the engines, And this is a fly-by-wire, so there's a joystick controller that actually flies the direction of flight for us. And then our engines all swivel, so we can kind of fly a little bit like a helicopter, a little bit like an airplane, and as you can kind of tell in the background here, it's a little bit like a flying boat. So it's not called an airship for nothing. It's like a ship in the sky. So we ride the airwaves just like a boat on the ocean would ride over the water.
I felt that. We've been up and down.
Up and back down. Yeah.
I thought it was pretty incredible just to see the size, the giant size of that balloon. Incredible. 250 feet long. It just is bigger than life.
Yeah, I was reassured to know that it was made in compartments.
Yeah.
So should something happen, right, that you had 4 out of the 5 compartments.
Yeah.
And I was reading one of the stories where someone, when they had a blimp crash, knowingly flew a remote control plane into one.
Oh, yeah, that made it crash. And they got arrested for it.
In prison time.
Yeah.
Yep. But that's because it was one individual
Envelope.
Or cylinder. Yep. Exactly.
They call those ballonets. And the science behind that is pretty cool. It's they have over 2.5 million gallons of helium in the blimp. And then they have these side bags called ballonets, small bladders of air. And those, they can shrink or expand based on the temperature. And helium is just like any atmospheric gas. It will shrink and it expand depending on the temperature. So when it's colder, it shrinks. When it's hotter, it expands. So that's when the helium inside the blimp, it has to move with the atmosphere.
The most basic form, what the helium physically does for us, is what a boat's hull does for it. It displaces air. So in this case, a boat would displace water, and the amount of water it displaces is the amount of weight it can hold up above the water. So we do the same thing with helium. We use the helium to displace the heavier air around us, which then makes us buoyant in the sky. What happens to the helium, though, is as temperature and pressure and humidity change, that same volume of helium, that same amount of lifting gas takes up more or less space, and that's constantly changing for us. So we want the outer shell that you see on the outside of the blimp is the helium container, and we want that container to stay the same size, shape, and pressure all the time. In order to manage that change and fluctuation in helium all the time, we have 2 smaller air cells called ballonets inside that do 2 things for us. The most important part is the pressure control. As the helium wants to expand out, those air cells will deflate. And then as the helium shrinks back down, as we get a higher pressure system or we have cooler temperatures or something like that, and the air around is more dense, it's crushing that helium in. So we do use tools like AccuWeather pretty consistently, among other things, to make sure that the airship stays safe in all of its operations.
I thought that science was pretty cool. I'm sure you caught all that, didn't you?
Yep. I thought was interesting too is they actually have a series of custom-made trucks that weigh about just under 60,000 pounds, right? They have a mask on them like this, and the balloon actually attaches to the mask mechanically and then pivots and floats in the wind. So what happens is the first people, they get on the blimp, they're attached, right? They get everybody situated, then they release the blimp. And then essentially the trips after that, they're free flying it in to the headwinds and getting it set down on the ground. Kind of set down on the ground because the dang thing moves like this. I mean, back and forth. So these 2 guys come out, they kind of open the door and they chase the blimp and then they clip on these stairs. These stairs are on rollers. You can see them back and forth as the blimp's moving back and forth like that also. And the thing is at some point, if there's nobody on there, right, the wheels are about like that far off the ground. So kind of a moving target. Unlike an amusement park where it says, please wait to get out to the
remain seated until the ride comes to a complete stop.
Yeah, there is no complete stop when you ride the blimp.
I was really surprised by that.
When we park it, we moor it to a truck. So we have a 65,000 pound truck with outriggers. It sits on the field. It only attaches to the nose, and then it's like a giant windsock. So wherever the wind blows, the airship moves. So this thing's almost 250 feet long. So when we park it in a space, it can touch anything inside of 500 feet all the time, or any time, as it goes around the circle. So it's not like an airplane that you can park and walk away from it, because the helium is always changing, whether we're flying or not. So we always have a watch person. All of our crew members are trained on watch. So we always have a watch person with the aircraft, because from day to night or night to day, the weight can change by more than 1,800 pounds. So you have to put all that weight on during the day so that it doesn't try to float away, and then you got to take it back off at night so it doesn't want to lay over on its side. And so they're making sure that pressure stays right. Like I said, there's 2 air cells in here, and we can shift where the air goes, and that also changes our trim. So they're making sure the trim is right, that it's not overstressing one way or the other. And then if the winds are strong enough, we actually fly it on the mast so that it's not bouncing up and down. So a lot of times you'll see a windsock or a flag that waves. This will kind of do the same thing, and we don't want it to wave and bang on the ground. So the person will actually physically keep the tail up in the air.
So as a meteorologist for AccuWeather, they were excited to invite us onto the blimp and to get a ride from what could be considered an actual weather balloon in the sky. They do take some weather measurements and, of course, need all that atmospheric information before they fly, every single time they fly. And so to have a meteorologist on board to learn about that was exciting. And AccuWeather is really excited also to share the story with the Goodyear Blimp.
We look at a number of things. We, first of all, are looking for general weather conditions. So a lot of our operations, we actually have to be able to see out the window. We call them VFR, or visual flight rules. So when we're a VFR day like today, we're doing custom rides, media, or obviously TV. You have to be able to see it to accomplish the mission, basically. So we're looking for general visibilities, cloud ceilings, and wind for the day, because we are very wind dependent. We are looking for the winds. We can tolerate quite a bit of wind, up to about 30 to 35 knots on the ground if it's steady enough for us. If the winds on the ground are 25 plus, usually you get up aloft and it's 35 or more, and then we're not going anywhere. So we have to be careful of that. The whole aircraft weighs 20,000 pounds. We have to stay plus or minus about 600 to 800 pounds maximum for a takeoff, static takeoff weight, which means the helium is lifting 98% of that 20,000 pounds, and the engines are just lifting the last few hundred pounds. It's really a good grouping of modern aircraft, super old school aircraft, and like I said, a big science project, because you're always literally doing the physics in your head to make sure that your weights and your pressures are right. We have enough helium in the thing. Just the way we manage the systems and resources of the aircraft is very science heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so statistical facts, like some of the things we learned, there are more astronauts in the United States than they are blimp pilots. Certified blimp pilots is what I think I'm going to say.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy.
Yep.
This has got to be a meteorologist's dream. I'm in the cockpit of the blimp. All right. How are we doing today? Are we doing all right? Everything's pretty smooth, right? All right. What altitude are we right now? How far off the ground are we? 1,500 feet? All right. Absolutely gorgeous. Couldn't have picked a better day.
Yep.
And the other fact you found out
was 0.006, I think, percentage of people that live in the United States will ride on the blimp. That's like nothing. Yeah.
And we were part of that.
Yeah.
That, huh?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really think it feels a lot like we have a pontoon boat on a lake. I feel like it's like trying to park our pontoon at the dock when it's really high winds. And you have to really figure out how the boat's going to go. Might look like this, but by the time it gets to the dock, it'll swing itself around.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was definitely like riding a boat, because I get motion sickness. And when we were up there, I got a little green in the gills there. I had to get one of the blimp hurl bags on call just in case, because I was close. But that's happened before, so it wasn't any.
I didn't even think of that. We've talked about the fact that you don't get motion sickness when you go to Pearl Island. And on that boat, you're good as gold. And I've really never experienced that with you, because you're excited. Maybe you're just preoccupied because of the island coming up. But when we got on the blimp, it really did feel like we were going up and down waves. And it was very quiet in there, I thought.
Yeah.
And the view was incredible.
Very hot in there too. Like it would really make you sweat hot. Like you might be sick hot. Whew, it's hot there.
Poor Bill.
I got to the back, and there was one door there, and I'm is about this big, and I'm like trying to stick my head out of it to go, trying to get cool, because it was. Yeah. Didn't they say, "Hey, is he okay?"
They look at me and they go, because I'm taking pictures and I'm having fun up front.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, is he okay?
Hey, is Kathy in the back okay? Is she okay? It's like, oh man.
Poor Bill.
And then he before the trip, they go, "What do you think?" I go, "Over the water and then just go around the track once, right?" We go around the track once, right? I'm doing okay. You know, hey,
Because again, you were looking down instead of out. Had you looked out, you would have been fine.
hey, we're gonna go back. We're gonna go back to the airport. Oh no. Round 2.
Kept going
Go
around.
around again, round 2. And I'm like, oh man, good, I will make it. I know I'll make it. He goes around again 3 times. I am like I said, I was green in the gill, right? I was kind of like taking the bathroom door like this to get a breeze in my face. So,
I'm sure you're not the first person to feel that, but it truly was an amazing event. I think that just the fact that it's like a big windsock is pretty incredible. And there's one in Ohio, in Akron, Ohio. There's one in Florida, and there is also one in California. And then they just take the 3 of those and the team of 20 behind the scenes of each blimp, and they do events all around the country. If you want to look at their website too, they have a very detailed calendar so you can see where the blimp is.
Yep. Yes.
So I just thought it was amazing to know all those things. And then the pilots just start circling.
Yep.
Right? Slowly circling.
So
sorry about that. It's make you a little sick.
Yeah. Slowly circling.
Poor Bill.
Exactly.
I have to tell you this though. Here I am interviewing the captain. Bill's my photographer, and not thinking that he gets motion sickness. He has to look down into the camera as he's watching the shot. And you're really, when you're not feeling well in that, you want to look out, not down. And when I turned around after I was taking pictures with the captains, I'm sitting in the captain's seat. I turned around and Bill was just sweating. And I knew something's wrong.
Ground control to Major Tom. That's what I was thinking.
Oh boy. I was very impressed though, as you do get on the blimp. Somebody has to sit in the pilot seat the whole time. After you're off the mast, nothing is holding it there except for the pilot trying to keep its back end down on the ground. And so again, it's based on winds, it's based on temperature, it's based on a lot of things. Before they had the engines that you mentioned that pivot, before they had that, they literally had to have ropes all around the outside of the blimp. And so when it came close to the earth, the ground, the crew would grab a rope and they would literally have to hold it to the ground. Similar to when you see the big balloons in a parade and you have people all around it holding it on with a tether. Same thing with the blimp. Once they got close, they all had to kind of hold on to that rope.
At night, they fill it with water ballast to keep it down. You know,
in the bottom of the gondola.
Yep. And so it's kind of interesting when you first go up there, and we were there first thing in the morning, right? They dumped their ballast. It was like a fire hose, just. And then what they do is to regulate people and weight, they actually have other ballast. So ballast is, it could be rocks. Typically in the shipping days, it was rocks. This is lead. And they'll load the ballast in and out of the bottom to accommodate for how many people, more or less weight-wise, is going. So it's interesting.
They had 8 seats.
Yep.
And then 2 pilots.
Yep.
So you have to consider all of that weight. And the blimp, actually, the helium in the blimp carries 80% of that up, 85 to 90% of that up. The last 10% is really by the small engines all around the outside that lift the blimp up.
We can take off and land like a helicopter because with this one, we're able to swivel the engines and then hover. So it's like a helicopter because we can hover it, hold it in one place. The difference is we always have to be pointed directly into the wind. So a helicopter can hover facing any direction. We can only hover facing directly into the wind. So we would use our weather tools, our onboard tools, and anything that to make sure that we're tracking generally where the wind is. And then from there, we just feel it as a pilot and keep it pointed right into the wind like a big windsock. So that's the helicopter part. Flying along like this, not like an airplane. You just point it where you want it to go, drive it along, flies kind of like an airplane. The actual outer shell is a lifting body. So right now we're heavier than air, so you can see we're flying just a little bit nose up. As the airship gets lighter, just like an airplane, we would then fly a little more level and then eventually nose down because we can be lighter than air. And in that case, we have to be flying nose down so that it doesn't want to float away. And then it is both because it's floating in the sky. And as you can feel here, or up and down on the waves, and we move around, it's really like floating in a bubble. So put all those things together makes it one of the most challenging things I've ever learned to fly. It's pretty cool.
It's the wind.
Yeah.
It's truly the wind. And the other thing is they have motors that set on the side of the blimp, right, that face like this, but they're also pivoting. So when you go to take off, they pivot those down and up you go. And when I mean up you go, they can go up to 30 degrees. It's kind of like I'm like, oh my gosh. So it was good though. It was fun. It was a great experience. 8 seats in the gondola in the bottom, all of them aisle, all of them window, and it's a clear day. 2 doors, one in the front, one in the back, and they got a little insert window in there that they open. And when we were going over the Daytona 500, I could hear the cars down below when they were doing their time trials.
Yeah.
And in one of them that we shot, there was also a fire truck or ambulance, some kind of system emergency. And we could hear that too. So it was just really interesting. About 1,500 feet up.
Obviously, the blimp, we've seen it all of our lives. It's an advertising tool, and there's so much that goes on behind the scenes to see it. But when you see it close up like we did, we're used to seeing it in the sky, and it looks like it's about this big. Well, it's 250 feet long. And they say it's the best way to get long version video because they're able to stay high above an event, like, say, for example, football, racing, all kinds of different sporting events, concerts, and it takes low fuel. And it's relatively quiet.
So when we're flying up and down the beach like that, we are an advertising tool. So we usually fly about 500 feet above the ocean. It's a great spot. So if you're sitting in your beach chair looking out over the ocean and the blimp flies by, like, hey, there goes the blimp. So ideally, people take a picture and wave, and we wave back, and it's super fun. Typically, over populated areas like we're coming up on now, as we get close to the Daytona National Speedway up here, we'd be about 1,000 to 1,500 feet. So 1,000 feet is a good sweet spot where we can see what's on the ground. They can see us. That marketing tool still works. It's also a good vantage point for our cameras, though. So we have an externally mounted camera like a news helicopter would have. Where you're sitting right now, there's a big rack. Our equipment operator would sit right here and remote operates everything. So it's a 4K camera, can transmit down. We can give real live shots. Oftentimes, especially for racing, they use us for the replays because we're one of the few cameras that has a big, wide range of shot. We can see the whole place at the same time. So really, really unique platform. We're also, we do all kind of sporting events, golf and baseball, football. Obviously, racing is what we're here for this weekend. We also do specialty shows, things like that, but all kind of media integration with the airship. Makes a great platform, can stay on station for a long time, doesn't burn much fuel. It's a pretty efficient aircraft.
Yeah, it is awesome. Really, obviously grown up with it. So tell me about an unexpected weather event in your career here with the blimp.
Well, especially down here in South Florida, every summer day is an unexpected weather event because you watch the heat of the day by about 10 o'clock in the afternoon or 10 o'clock in the morning. It's, right before noontime. And you can start see those cells building up just a little bit off of the ocean. So it just depends on how the ocean breeze interacts with the common westerly winds down here and how close or far away from the beach that weather stays. So a lot of times we're really watching really close to make sure, we might get a whole flying day in if those things stay just out over the Everglades. And if it comes and runs us over, then we got to run back to the base and get out of the way. So we're pretty good at that. We use all the tools we can, things like AccuWeather, like I said, but then we also have aviation tools, and we have onboard weather information on our screens as well, and we watch all that stuff really closely to make sure that we keep the blimp in a safe spot.
Have you ever had to handle tornado, hurricane, any kind of severe weather?
Yeah, we have hurricane protocol specifically for our South Florida base. So typically speaking, if we see that a major hurricane is going to make some kind of Florida landfall, we would run away from that. But we want to be able to do that enough days in advance that we can get, because it takes us 2 days to get out of Florida. So, we have to leave fairly well in advance, and then all the crews, equipment, and all that other stuff. So, but we're also cognizant of the families and things like that too. So we're Goodyear is pretty good at supporting that kind of stuff. We do have protocols for that. Other severe weather like tornadoes, much harder to predict. Obviously, we're people safety first. But there's times when you're out in the Midwest in the middle of summertime and it's definitely a threat. So, we have some protocols and some safety stops in place for that. But the person that's sitting here on watch is responsible for making sure that they watch that along with the crew chiefs back at base. And if we do have a severe weather event, oftentimes we have more than one person that's out at the watch, so they can help keep each other safe as well.
So have you had to avoid anything like that specifically as pilot? Tell me what.
Yeah. I've had several times where you run away from storms. You can see them coming, and base is downwind, so you turn around and you run downwind, get secured before the weather catches up to us. I've had lots of times, especially in the summer, I've done that. I've also been the person on the ground that comes out and helps the watch, because any of us, like I said, are kind of qualified for the watch duties, and so we just take turns. If there's severe weather in the area, we all work as a team to make sure the blimp stays safe.
You always feel endearing to your plane. How do you, it's like your family. It's it's yours.
Yeah.
It's gotta really feel a little bit of ownership or a little bit of pride that this is your ship.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the best parts about working for the team is that I don't think people realize how many people are behind each of the blimps, but it is super fun to be part of the team that makes it go. We say the blimp is a celebrity, we're the entourage that chases it around and makes sure everything stays square. But yeah, that's super fun. You show up in a town, especially where we haven't been for a long time, and you literally have people lining the fences waiting to talk to somebody or see the blimp. So it's really cool.
It is the star of the show. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
What is the biggest misconception about the blimp?
I think people think that it's really simple and rudimentary, and it's not. It's one of the most complex aircraft out there for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is the physics that goes along with it and how dependent it is on things like weather and temperature and very small pressure and wind changes and things like that. So I kind of always preach to our team that we're like Goodyear's version of the Blue Angels, and that's how we present ourselves. So it's pretty exciting when we pull into a town with all of our stuff and it all lines up real nice, and it's exciting for us as much as it is for the folks on the ground that get to see us. For some of the earlier trips that I got to go to see 4th of July fireworks sitting 500 feet over the Hudson just north of the Statue of Liberty was super cool. We've gotten to fly some cool people. I've flown Captain Sully and his first officer Jeff Skiles. I've flown Jim Lovell, the Apollo pilot, and he was super fun. He asked so many questions that even our own pilots don't ask. It was just really cool to interact with him, and he turned around, handed his phone to his friends to take a picture so my son believes I was on the blimp. I'm like, you've been in space. How could you?
Right.
But,
how could this be any cooler?
yeah, but it was so stuff like that is really cool. And then I did get to fly Kelly from AccuWeather, so it's been fantastic as well.
And the other fun fact too is I was probably the only one that physically got a souvenir out of the blimp.
I'll have to show that to you.
Unfortunately, it was a blimp hurl bag. I didn't use. Just so you know.
We're going to keep that for posterity. What do you say?
Yeah. I should have had the pilot sign it.
You should have.
Find my hurl bag.
Well, their director was also on the blimp with us.
Yes.
Chris was with us.
Great
and
guy.
So happy to have Chris along with us. And he really taught us a lot too. They use it as a tool for, of course, clients. It is a marketing tool for Goodyear, and it's been around 100 years. And we're proud to be part of that family now too.
They receive no money.
Yeah.
It's all bartering. So, like you see sports events where it says aerial views provided by Goodyear, right? That's their bartering.
Right. They don't charge the venue to be there, and then the venue doesn't charge them to be able to air their content.
Yep.
So that works out good for Goodyear. But again, to ride the blimp, you need an invitation. Yeah. And so it was nice to be invited. Yeah. And, I thought our captain was fantastic. And, of course, both captains were great. Yeah.
Everybody was.
Then there were other captains that were waiting on the wings because once our two captains were done, the other two captains had to jump on. And so literally it's run up those steps as soon as it gets a little close, yep. And hold on to the side so you don't fall off. And then you get in the blimp, and it's very comfortable once you get in there.
Yep. And I was going to say, there were some science clubs.
Yeah.
And, more or less science clubs.
They were students.
Students, yeah.
Engineering students.
Engineering students, too, that were invited on the blimp. So that was a good one.
Well, and Daytona has a school for pilots right close by. And so they were hoping to invite some of these students that had a certain level, grade point level, and they were awarded a ride on the Goodyear Blimp because to be a Goodyear Blimp pilot, you need a special rating.
They never made it.
So we hire pilots that are commercially rated in something else anyway. Oftentimes have an instrument rating, certified flight instructor license, and things like that. And then all the training that we do on the airship is in-house training. So usually around 200 hours plus or minus, takes us 9 months to a year to make a pilot. And then there's a special check ride at the end, and you get an additional rating on your pilot's license specific for the blimp. It's called lighter than air airship. And there aren't too many people that can do those check rides. So there's one person in the FAA and then me. We keep each other current, and typically we've trained the folks for the last handful of years that the FAA has that know anything about airships, because it's a tiny little, aviation's pretty small anyway, but blimps are a tiny little piece of that. So very needy aircraft. Somebody has to be with it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We take about a 2-week break when we take the helium out to do an inspection of that internal frame for this thing. We put the helium back in, and the watch goes back to work. So it's always, whether it's in the hangar, sitting outside, it's never left alone. It takes a team to get all of this stuff done, and that's really cool too, because You know, most of the time as a pilot, you're a little bit out there by yourself, or you might have a one other pilot in the cockpit that's kind of helping watch stuff. But in here, we can't land without the team on the ground, the truck, and all the other support equipment. So kind of that team and family atmosphere makes it really cool too.
What an incredible trip! I can't believe it! Wow! That and Blimp is incredible! Thank you.
Make sure you stay behind.
Okay, you got it, sir. This was unbelievable. The view is beautiful. The science behind it is incredible. And very proud to see that Goodyear team up in the air. What an amazing trip.
Yeah, that's a very impressive Goodyear, very impressive operation.
Very good. And it was high class all the way. And now that when we see the Goodyear Blimp flying over an event, Bill, what are you going to think?
It was nice. It was good.
And you're going to be
I'm
glad.
thankful the people underneath this did not have to experience any of that. And we are very thankful for the Goodyear staff.
Yeah.
They sent us a little merchandise that I would like to say, right?
Blimping easy, baby.
You don't always have to be standing to take a shower.
Bright sunny skies. It's so humid and hot.
In Defender, and we are riding right now into the rain. Let's take a look at that.